Hi everybody, I'm here with Keith Roberts, who is a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of International Studies for Education at the University of Pittsburgh. He has a lot of information for us about the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, which is an instrument of corporations that is helping to run our government for us.
I'd like to talk about ALEC because ALEC is the way that the corporations get the legislation to the states. And it's been in effect since the 1970s. And what they do is they flatter the state legislators by taking them to these resort areas and sharing with them their agendas. There's over 300 corporate donors to ALEC right now, and they allow conservative state legislators, who are mostly Republicans, to join for about $100. And then corporations belong, and they join and they pay tens of thousands to have access to these legislators. And ALEC then, once or twice a year, depending on what committees you're on, they fly the legislators to prestigious resorts to present the legislation. And they say they do it in committees. The committees would be a committee that would have some representatives of the corporation and some legislators on it. But the attorneys for the corporations do the groundwork to write the legislation, and no legislation gets out of ALEC as model legislation without having had the approval of the corporations. So your state legislator, no matter what state you're in, if that state legislator is a member of ALEC, that state legislator is not writing laws that represent her constituency or his constituency.
Because we, the people, aren't involved anywhere in this process.
Nowhere in the process do people know what's going on. And not only that, the ALEC's activities are secret. You know, the press can't come in, citizens can't come into it, and so they come back to their states, whether it's Utah, whether it's Wisconsin, whether it's Indiana, with legislation prepackaged and approved by the corporations, who incidentally have paid for their trip and who might have given as little as like $500 in contributions to them. So these people not only are bought, but they're bought very, very cheaply.
Yeah, it sounds cost effective for the corporations.
It is very cost effective.
Yeah.
And they come back and
Right.
they deliver. And here's how they deliver. This is the thing that's so interesting about it, is they have, ALEC has co-chairs in each state. Like for instance, in Wisconsin, there's two public sector co-chairs. Robin Voss,
Yes.
who was the chair of the Joint Finance Committee last year. So you can imagine that the most powerful person in the Joint Finance Committee is also the co-chair for Wisconsin, and his job is to drive through the ALEC legislation, get it through the legislature. And the other is Scott Souter, but they also have a private sector.
Wasn't Walker a big player in ALEC?
Well, he was when he was in the state, when he was in this state legislature. He was a very big player in ALEC, and so was Tommy Thompson. You know, but and so their connections are all there. You know, and they know all the people, and everything is sort of greased that way. But if we're talking about what's happening right now, we've got public sector people who we actually elected to represent us, who in fact are not representing us. They are given the task of taking the corporate approved legislation of ALEC and delivering it to the state.
Corporate written.
Corporate written and approved.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, there is also a corporate lobbyist who is a co-chair, and her name is Amy Boyer, and her clients are like, she's a lobbyist for like Cook Industries. So and then what they do, Amy and the others, is they get corporations to donate money, and that money then goes to buy the airline tickets and the hotels for the legislators when they go to these ALEC meetings. And the ALEC meetings are always at very high-end places.
How can we the people compete against us.
You can't.
Thank you.
You
I
can't.
know it.
You can't.
So what do we do?
Well, we have to get rid of the corporate influence. That's it. And that's why move to amend is so important, because it draws attention to people about the power of the corporations. I'll use Wisconsin as an example, but this is typical of states where the Republicans, and it's Republicans because the Republicans have chosen to get in bed with ALEC.
Yeah.
It's not the Republican Party as the traditional Republican Party that we knew from the past. It's not the party of Lincoln anymore.
No.
And so in Wisconsin, for instance, in the last legislative session, 32 bills that were introduced that were ALEC model legislative bills. And
32 out of how many?
well, I don't know the total.
50 or something?
I'm not sure how many the total were because I was just looking at the ALEC bills. 21 of those were passed. 21
Okay.
of them. And it's sort of like the highest percentage in any state, I think, because ALEC's website used to brag that 18% of their bills got passed. That was in the old days before people started
Well,
catching on.
that's like 66%.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it really is a kind of legalized bribery.
So if money were not speech, they wouldn't have as much money.
That's right, and they wouldn't have as much
And of
influence.
course, if corporations weren't people, they wouldn't have as much influence or, the sovereignty that we, the people, have.
Well, that's why it's important for us to get behind move to amend and get this undone.
So who are the people who really benefit from this?
Well, it's interesting because the people who benefit from ALEC are very obvious if you look at the ALEC subcommittees. But the people who benefit from ALEC are, first of all, gun and ammunition manufacturers, because of the kind of legislation that they have pushed through all the states, the Castle Doctrine, concealed carry, those kinds of things. Insurance companies benefit. Insurance companies benefit because of the legislation that has to do with health care and other things related to that. Also, tort reform and those things.
Mhm.
Big pharmaceuticals.
Tort
benefits.
reform. Do people understand what tort reform
Well,
really is?
tort reform restricts your ability to sue for injury.
Right, so it protects big
It
corporations
protects big corporations
damages.
From damages, yes.
Okay, that's what tort reform
Yes,
really is.
Yeah, that was the first. That was the first bill that the Walker administration passed.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the bill that kept you from being able to see the records of your loved one in a nursing home if anything happened to them. But other things, for-profit health care benefits, for-profit education benefits, for-profit prisons benefit. So truth in sentencing really is legislation that ALEC had promoted in order to get more people in prison, because there's more and more for-profit prisons, and a for-profit prison group is very, very active in ALEC. Big oil, of course, big tobacco and liquor, and one of our legislative things last year was changing in how we taxed tobacco, and of course Wall Street always benefits. But the thing is, if you want to know who suffers,
Yeah,
who suffers? We all do.
we pay for it too.
We all do. The 99% suffer. This is really, really an example of the 1% pulling all the strings and the 99% suffering. And why does it happen? It happens because of this. The 99%, us, we pay taxes. The 1%, they pay politicians. And that's why they have the control.
And they have very little in the way of taxes.
No. And so ALEC is the place where the 1% gives the directions to the previously purchased politicians. And the 99% do not have a place at that table. And you know what they always say, if you don't have a place at the table, you're on the menu.
By now, it won't surprise you to learn that Wisconsin's former governor has been a friend of ALEC, going all the way back to his days as a state legislator, when he himself was an ALEC member. Take a listen to a speech Thompson made at an ALEC conference in 2002.
Myself, I always love to go to these meetings because I always found new ideas. And then I'd take them back to Wisconsin, disguise them a little bit, and declare that it's mine.
Ah, yes, Tommy Thompson and so many others.